The president of the HDMI Licensing LLC, and we're the agent that licenses the HDMI specification and has worked with the founders over the years to develop the specification. We're going to give you a short presentation today that includes not only an update from HDMI licensing, but also, probably more importantly, more information on an announcement we made last October about the launch of the HDMI Forum, which is a new organization, and we'll explain what that means. And then we'll also talk about what's next for the HDMI specification. Just a few practical issues. We have a press release that went out this morning on Business Wire. That will be posted on the HDMI Licensing LLC site, as well as on the HDMI Forum site. The URL is hdmiforum.org, but we have that as part of the presentation as well. And lastly, we have HDMI t-shirts over there. Please take a t-shirt. We don't want them. We want you to take the t-shirts home. We don't want to take the t-shirts home. But we do have t-shirts over there. I think we have people that will be giving them out. Okay, let me get going and give you a quick update on HDMI licensing, some of the market information, and that'll be done by me, and as well update on the adopters. And then when we get to the forum overview and the plans for the release of the next specification, I'll ask Arnold Brown, who's down here, and the chairman of the HDMI Forum, and Rambo Jacoby, who's the president of the HDMI Forum, to do that presentation. And we'll all be available afterwards for question and answer. On the market, these are numbers that are tracked by Instat, the third-party market research firm that routinely does a report on HDMI shipments, projected shipments, and they released their report in December, so these are very new numbers, and it continues to show the trend over the last few years that HDMI, in terms of number of units that will ship, continues to grow dramatically. But just as importantly, the legend on the right-hand side that really shows the kinds of products that HDMI is used in as an HD interface is really quite impressive, because that has expanded quite a bit over the years. HDMI, as you know, started out really focused on the home theater, and now we see it in mobile products and in PCs certainly, and in automobiles even. So it has truly proliferated to become the single interface for connecting your HD devices. Our adopters also has grown. So right now, at the end of this year, at the end of 2011, we were at 1,166. Continue to grow, continue to see new adopters who have niche applications, who are building products for very specific commercial applications, for example. There are a lot of new companies that are joining that have very interesting applications of HDMI. And we always give an update of where our adopters are from. This has remained fairly steady, except with the one exception that we continue to see a rise in the percentage of adopters that come from China. I remember in 2006 it was probably 24%. That has increased gradually over the years. Now it's over 33%. Now the big news last year, and it's really only almost a little more than 2 months ago, was not a technical announcement, but an organizational announcement, but it has huge impact on the specification and the technology and the way HDMI will be developed in the future. And that is that in October of 2011, The HDMI founders, there were 7 founders that were the principal, the only companies that developed this specification, essentially created a new organization where any company that is interested can participate in the development of the HDMI specification. So essentially, due to the overwhelming success of the HDMI interface, the 7 companies said, we are going to open the development of the specification up to any company that wants to participate. And that was the launch of the HDMI Forum. It happened in October 2011, and the founders essentially created an organization that's open, transparent, open for members, and was available to anyone who wanted to apply to become a member. So with that, what I'll do is turn it over to Arnold Brown, who's the chairman of the HDMI Forum, and he will give you an overview of exactly what the mission of the forum is, the role, responsibilities, and give you a little bit more summary information.
Thank you, Steve. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the HDMI Forum. As Steve mentioned, we did our first press release back in October 2011, announcing the launch of the HDMI Forum. So what is the HDMI Forum? The HDMI Forum is a non-profit, mutual benefit corporation that was formed to create the next version of the HDMI specification and future versions. And with the announcement in October 2011, a call went out for companies to join as members of the HDMI Forum. And we're pleased that the number of companies that have responded to that call, and there's a large industry effort now that consists of member companies that are leaders in the fields of consumer electronics, computer, and semiconductor industries, all contributing to the development of a new specification. The HDMI Forum is governed by an 11-member board of directors that have been elected from the membership. For more information about the member companies as well as the board of directors and who's on it, you can visit the HDMI Forum website. As Steve mentioned, that's hdmiforum.org. And the HDMI Forum is open for participation by any entity. There is a fee of $15,000 per year to be an HDMI Forum member and to contribute to the development of the specification. And to date, we have 43 members. As I mentioned, we're very pleased with the turnout and the progress that we've made. So a little bit more about what the role of the HDMI Forum is. It's to support and develop all future versions of the HDMI specification, as we mentioned, and support and maintain the ecosystem of interoperable HDMI-enabled products. In addition, the HDMI Forum will promote future versions of the HDMI specification through marketing efforts and continue its worldwide effort to promote the specification. And it provides open, fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory licensing for HDMI technologies. We believe that the real goal is to meet the consumer needs, ultimately the needs of the consumer electronics, computer, and mobile industries, as well as a greater ecosystem of display technologies. And this is pulling in input from members that are far greater than the original group of 7 founding companies. So we're very excited about this effort. And for explaining how we're going to make this happen, I'm going to turn it over to Rambo Jacoby, who's the president of HDMI Forum, and he's going to talk about how we can make this happen.
Thank you, Arnold. Can everyone hear me over the house party next door? We good? All right, great. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the midst of a revolution in the display industry. Not only are advances in display products combined with advances in receiver technologies and transmitters, enabling higher resolutions, capable of higher refresh rates, and even deeper, more lifelike color on displays. But the way that we as consumers interact with these displays, through our PCs, through our handheld devices, and through our peripherals, is also evolving. As consumers, we're looking for a more fluid connection between our devices and our displays, but we're also changing the type of content that we watch on these displays. Displays are no longer passive devices that sit in our family dens or office desktops, but instead these displays are turning into active extensions of our handheld devices. And this transition is occurring because of the content. We're not limited anymore to content just off of Blu-ray or discs, but the content that you're going to start seeing on displays is starting to evolve to 3D gaming off of our handheld devices. It's starting to evolve into management and interaction with our social networks. And it's starting to evolve into streaming content off of our handheld devices. Now, at the heart of the HDMI Forum is our membership's insights into these trends, as well as the knowledge that in order to have a revolution in display, a high quality, high bandwidth link must exist between our handheld devices and these displays. Sorry. Now, as my colleague Arnold mentioned just a few moments ago, the charter of the HDMI Forum is to develop the next generation specifications so that it is the future of connectivity. Well, here's how we're going to do that. To begin, what we've done is we've enabled technical and marketing work groups that have started to compile and work through the dozens of proposals provided by the general membership on how HDMI can meet the needs of the future. And as a result, what we're committing to is that we're going to have a published specification by the second half of 2012 that addresses some of the most immediate needs of the market. This specification is going to address the immediate need of high bandwidth. And this is to be able to support higher resolution displays, for example, 4K by 2K at 60 Hertz. And we're also going to broaden some of our video timing support to accommodate some of our European and other regions in terms of things like 3D. But moving forward, the forum is going to begin evolving this specification so that it becomes a lot more friendly and a lot more compatible with our handheld devices. This can include, for example, the ability to be able to charge the device when it's connected to the display, or maybe even the ability to change some of the voltages on the interface so that the interface could be more efficient when connected to a handheld device. And we're also looking at improving a lot of the command and control capabilities of the HDMI specification. So this can include, for example, updating the CEC protocol to make it more relevant, as well as maybe even adding an auxiliary sideband channel for bidirectional communication between the two devices. As the HDMI Forum begins to ramp, HDMI is going to touch more and more consumers all over the world. And as a result, what I want to do is I want to reach out to any company that has a perspective on how HDMI can meet its customers' needs, whether those needs be geographical, whether they be social, or whether they be cultural, and to speak up and to let us know what those needs are so that we can build the specification to accommodate their customers. And they can do that by, of course, reaching out to myself, my colleague Arnold Brown, HDMI LLC, or hdmiforum.org. I want to stop here and invite Arnold and Steve back on stage so that we can start the Q&A aspect of this discussion. Gentlemen? I'll let Steve moderate the discussion.
Oh, I still have a job, thank you. Any questions? Any questions anyone has? Rodolfo, of course, I knew you were going to ask a question.
That is already on the specification, but not 4K 3D.
I'm sorry, can you speak to the
Yes, you
microphone?
mentioned that you're going to have a spec expanded to include 4K by 2K.
Closer.
You mentioned that you're going to have the specification to include 4K by 2K.
Yes.
To my knowledge, that's included in 1.4. What is not included is a 3D 4K.
So that's correct. 1.4 had essentially define the video timings for 4K by 2K at 24, 25, and 30 hertz. Right? So now we're talking, as you say, 3D, or let's say increasing that to 60.
Right, so this will be essentially doubling the bandwidth to be able to hit 4K by 2K at 60. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
Do you have any plans to incorporate a power component other than what you mentioned about mobile devices?
So a power component is on the list of requirements that's being provided to the marketing work groups, and we're working on incorporating that and deciding when to actually roll that out into the specification.
HDMI initially, very first version was developed by a single company, and that was one of the reasons for it being ahead of the requirement of the technology at that time. Now, when we look at HDMI, it appears that HDMI has downgraded itself to become a lowest common denominator of everyone's capability rather than the demands of the technology. How do you plan to address that?
Arnold, do you want to answer that?
If I were to, I'll hand it over to you to answer, but if I were to rephrase your question, in the early days, HDMI was essentially one company, let's say, or a handful of companies, and therefore it could look to the future, it could react fast, it could develop ahead of the market. And now it seems that HDMI is downgraded, you said, but essentially gone to a more common denominator level. So how is HDMI going to be innovative?
So the original HDMI specifications, created by a handful of companies, as Steve said, gave it the ability to react very quickly to the marketplace and led to this immense growth and adoption that we see today. We believe that broadening the input from the industry will allow HDMI to go beyond the initial specific focus that it had on supporting televisions and source devices. And Rambo very, very nicely put, the vision is to expand. And to do that, you really need to have other industry players and a broad ecosystem. So the next phase of HDMI, I think not only do we think this is a good thing, but I think it's required that we get this broader participation to have a really healthy, vibrant specification. So I don't view it as downgrading at all. I think we're actually looking towards the future.
Right. I think just to expand on that, I think HDMI was great, but I think one of the things that's going to push the HDMI Forum and the next generation further is because we have input from not just the consumer electronic industries, but there's a substantial amount of input from the cabling industries. There's a substantial amount of input and participation from the PC industry, from GPU manufacturers, chipset manufacturers, and that's just going to make it an even better brand.
Thank you. So my question is, do you see any competition between HDMI and MHL or even Thunderbolt? And if so, what's your guys' advantage?
So let me address Thunderbolt. Do you want to take that? Should I take that? So let me address Thunderbolt, and I guess maybe even DisplayPort in general. DisplayPort and Thunderbolt are very, I don't want to call them niche, but they serve a very specific market, right? They serve the more high-performance computing and commercial market, whereas that's not really where HDMI is, right? HDMI is synonymous with consumer, and because of this broad, because of the existing, we've already penetrated the market rather significantly, right? And I don't think that we're competing against Thunderbolt or DisplayPort. I think we play in two separate markets, and just because of the penetration of HDMI thus far, I don't view it as competition.
So if it's not a competition, you showed us graphic where we could see that it's, your market is growing in the PC business, but at this time we have high resolution graphic cards with an output with 2560 by 1440 or something like that, and this is not supported by any, as far as I know, by any normal graphic card on the market. So we always have display ports on them. So how do you address this?
So I don't think it's the graphics card that you're addressing that can't support it. Graphics cards, GPUs, I was going to talk from my day job. I work for NVIDIA. GPUs can support resolutions of 4K by 2K and higher. It's not the graphics card, it's the interface. Now, DisplayPort can support those interfaces, but if you look at any graphics card or any PC that's been manufactured in the last couple of years, they all have HDMI on them. They all support HDMI. So this participation from the PC industry is to make sure that HDMI supports these larger displays. It's to bring it up to speed with the rest of the market, to be able to catch it up with the higher resolution displays. Please, go ahead.
But don't you see a gap there? Because you're bringing out new specifications with a lot of possibilities. Let's talk about, for example, about Ethernet over HDMI, but later you don't see this on the market. So, of course, you can bring out more and more specifications, but it doesn't mean that you will be successful in that business, and that's, you can also fall behind, because, of course, you say this is now something like we call as HD on displays, computer displays, but tomorrow it won't be HD anymore. So it will be totally normal to have these resolutions, and still you are a little bit stuck now on this lower resolutions.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit of HDMI is that it's such a recognized consumer brand, and what we're trying to do here is to build on that brand and make sure that it does support the type of displays that we're talking about here.
Neil, please.
Thanks. This is actually very interesting because the PC 3D world is divided into two camps. There's the AMD camp, which is attached very much, I think, to DisplayPort. There's the Nvidia camp, which is very much connected to dual-link DVI. And up until now, HDMI, because it was only supporting 720p for gaming purposes, everyone can support it with an understanding that their core connector technology provided this, in this case, the superior output for 3D. Now that they've got the HDMI Forum, and looks like we're going to be pushing that bandwidth up to like 1080p gaming in 3D at the full gaming performance, are we looking at a potential future of one connector and like equal support amongst displays for all the different 3D solutions in the market?
So I don't want to make this a discussion about AMD versus NVIDIA. I don't think that's what we want to do. But I want to touch on, I think, 2 points. One is you address dual-link DVI, and I think it's a great thing to bring up. But dual-link DVI has its problems, right? That's why we're moving away from it. That's why we're trying to bring into existence 3D support over high resolution over HDMI. Did I answer your question? And by the way, just to clarify, AMD is also part of the HDMI Forum, so this is helping us converge.
The name.
Take that?
The question was, what's going to be the name of the new specification? The answer is, we're not sure yet. That's going to be coming. But obviously, as Rainbow pointed out, the HDMI brand is very strong, and obviously we will be leveraging the HDMI brand in the future name. But it's a good question, but we haven't decided yet. Our marketing working group is actually actively working on that right now.
Back to you, Mr. Hall. Sure.
What are the 3 most pressing advances or features that consumer electronics companies, I guess, and or PC companies are asking for in the next spec?
That's a great question. So one of probably the biggest things that a lot of companies are asking for that are part of the HDMI Forum is to be able to get to higher resolutions. There's a lot of use cases for high res. I mentioned a couple of them. As our social networking connection begins to improve, you're going to need higher DPI on displays, right? So to be able to view some of the high-res photography that people are taking with their cameras and a lot of their text, in order to be able to support that and make it smooth interaction between those services, you need to go to higher resolution. So that's one of the first things. As you may have mentioned, as you may have noticed, I mentioned that one of the things that's also going to be in the specification that we deliver in 2012 is going to be for increase in the number of formats that we support. So that's one of the other things. And there were two other features that I mentioned. One of them was compatibility between displays and phones, whether that be through a charging capability or whether it be through compatible voltages, as well as improved command and control. Those are some of the big things that the companies that are part of this forum have been asking for, that we're trying to address.
Question about the authority to release new specs, new versions. Is the forum going to have the authority to do that now and not the founders? How that thing changes?
So I believe the question was, does the HDMI Forum have the authority to release new specification versions? The answer is yes. The HDMI Forum will be publishing new specification versions through the HDMIForum.org website. So yes, the forum does have the authority to release new specifications and will be doing that in the time frame that Rambo mentioned.
I'll just add from the founders' perspective. The founders have essentially said we will not develop the spec anymore. So the founders are members of the forum, but they're members just like anybody else. So now the forum launches the specification.
Since HDMI was created, I was concerned with the frequency of issuing releases with new features and modifying the entire industry of electronics that now they have released 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. The focus was not to concentrate on the number of the version, but the features of the device. I assume that's going to continue. But what is your anticipation of how frequently you're going to release new versions? Is that going to change anything you have done in the past?
I think monthly.
That's a good question. And also I wanted to point out, for your last question, that all of the HDMI founders are actually members of the HDMI Forum. So that's the case. Also, with respect to frequency of specification release, that is a topic that the membership is considering. But I think there's an acknowledgement that we'd like a cadence of these specifications to come out so that the industry can be informed about what to expect going forward. So this idea of the cadence of spec release is something that's in the group's mind, and we'll be releasing information about it accordingly. I think we have to get this first spec out first. Then we'll be following it up with some information about what to expect in terms of the frequency of spec release.
No, I think you hit it.
HDMI currently has a lot of versions, and the cables themselves, of course, don't use the numbering scheme, but use high speed or normal speed, and then with Ethernet or without Ethernet. Now, with the increasing amount of features, do you plan to address that confusion for the customers? Because, and also for cable makers, I see a lot of cable makers that don't label their cables with the correct HDMI labels, but label them with 1.4 or 1.3. Is this something that you plan to address, or make it easier for consumers to recognize that they are using a correct cable?
Yeah. So the issues on cable confusion of labeling cables, and how the forum is going to address that. I'll just talk from a where we are at the present. So as of January 1st of this year, in case you didn't know, no product is allowed to have the version number on it. Cables were not allowed a year ago, but as of today, even, I'm not saying that there aren't ones out there, yes, I understand. But that's our job to go tell these people that that's not allowed. So we need to do that. So as of today, no, because one of the complaints people had in terms of confusion was the use of version number, which didn't mean anything really in terms of features. That's why we went to cable names, which gave you the capabilities of the cable, whether it's high speed or not, whether it has Ethernet or not. So that's something that we manage at the licensing organization all the time, looking around, enforcing. If someone uses a version number, we tell them you can't do it, get it off your package, you can no longer market with that. Now moving forward, I think the forum, I'll just transition over here, but the forum clearly understands that broadly, not just cables, but broadly, with technology that really just increases so quickly, and we will have new versions and we will have new functionality, that customer confusion needs to be minimized. So the most important thing I think the forum thinks about, not specifically about cables or connectors or features, but broadly, whatever we do, forum, needs to take in consideration that you need to minimize customer confusion. Now how that will play out, I think it is to be determined, but that's essentially a major theme at the forum.
Yeah, you summarized it well.
Any other questions? Bernd?
So especially in case of cables, the bigger the bandwidth, the bigger is the problem to get long lengths on HDMI cable. So are there any plans for the upcoming standard to support maybe active powered cables to come over these limitations? And so the longer the cable is, the bigger the cable is, and so you get the problem of you pull the plug out of the device. So is there any plans like DVI to make finally somewhere in the near future locking mechanism that is specified by HDMI itself?
Well, I would encourage you to participate in the HDMI forum so that you could present these proposals. But so far, they haven't been at the top of the marketing list. So if that's something that's important to you, like I said, please participate and help push the spec to incorporate that.
Any other questions? Certainly come back and talk to us individually if you wish. Why don't we, I know we got to get out of this room anyway.
Yeah, we'll be outside.
So thank you very much for attending. Please do pick up a t-shirt or 10. And if you will have individual questions, feel free to come up and ask us. Thank you so much.